Hey guys, what's up? I'm Noah, this is Analog Resurgence, and today I'm taking a look at some 4x5 film that I shot, developed, and scanned myself. Alright, I know lots of people out there are going kind of stir crazy, but it is still important to be conscious of how you're spending your time, the places you're going, the activities that you're doing. And so recently I went out on a walk to a park near me and I shot some 4x5 film, and also I developed it and I scanned it. I took the opportunity to try and do something a little bit different, and then there's also a bit of home developing in here for all you people who are really interested in that. I don't do like a full tutorial for it, but there's definitely some tips and some information in this video about that as well. And then I did some really bad scans of my 4x5 using an old crappy flatbed scanner that I have that really isn't set up to do 4x5 film, so there's a little bit of that as well. So this is also a bit of a tutorial on how not to scan 4x5. I know I haven't really talked about 4x5 in large format too much on the channel, but I do really like it. I have a beautiful Crown Graphic Graflex 4x5 camera here. So this is a 4x5 camera. In the future, I'll break down large format and 4x5 a little bit more, but today I just want to have some fun. So 4x5 film is sheet film, and sheet film means that just one sheet of film is one single frame of film. So for this stuff, I have a few boxes of this old expired black and white negative Kodak film, and this is Kodak Plus X Pan professional film, and it is from 1976, November of 1976. Now this stuff is pretty expired, so I'm gonna throw up some samples of it in the past that I've taken. It's usually a little unpredictable. Now this stuff you load up into film holders in the dark, and a normal film holder will hold one sheet of film on each side, which means that the film and the loading of the film has to be done in complete darkness. But I did not use a normal film holder which has the ability to hold two sheets of film. I used a special Graphmatic 4x5 back which can be put on this camera, and it actually holds 6 sheets of film. So instead of holding only 2, I was able to load this one and be able to take 6 shots when I was out walking around with the camera. I'll highlight this a little bit more in the future as well because I love this thing. This is pretty much just kind of like a quick and dirty, like run and gun, let's have some fun, shoot 4x5. So stick around for all of that, and hopefully you'll enjoy this as much as I enjoyed being able to shoot it. Alright, so my girlfriend and I took the old 4x5 Graflex camera out, and we just kind of did some walking around for a bit. It was really nice out, and it was also really bright out, which means I was able to shoot this expired stuff really easily. And I rated this at 50 ISO. Now the 4x5 camera is of course completely manual. It doesn't have like a built-in light meter or anything like that, so I did bring with me my trusty handheld Sekonic light meter. The 4x5 camera just has like a lens mounted on the lens board at the front here, and then you control the aperture and the shutter speed settings just by turning the different settings on the actual lens itself. And using the Graphmatic to shoot is just like a really kind of cool experience because, well, I'll just show you.
All right, if I remember doing this right. All right, so now the first one is showing, and then should be it. And then it shuffles to a new one. Ta-da!
Renee seemed to be pretty interested in what I was doing as well. So some shots of the street corner, some shots of the park, and let's develop. Alright, I've loaded my 4x5, the 6 sheets of 4x5 into my 4x5 holder for my Patterson tank here. And this normally holds like 3 individual rolls of 35mm, so you need a 3-reel tank in order to like do one of these. And one of these tanks needs about 1 liter's worth of chemicals in order to like fill it up. So I just have some water in here, and it's just kind of soaking the film. So we're using dilution B of HC110 chemicals. So we're gonna use like 31 milliliters of chemicals to about 970 milliliters of water. And we're gonna mix all of this at around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm also gonna fill up one of the sinks here so that I can just kind of like sit my fix in there, and then that will stay at like a better, more consistent temperature so that when I get to it, it'll be like the same temperature as the developer. So that's sitting at like 70 degrees and I'm just gonna fill up the sink. I did also read an article where people were talking about having developed some of this older Plus X stuff, and I mean, people were using mostly HC110 at dilution B for like six and a half minutes. So I'm just gonna try 7 minutes, and I'm also gonna maybe try and agitate like a little more vigorously just to maybe like heighten the contrast, or just to make sure that like that chemical just gets in there with that old film. Okay, so the fix is sitting in my sink here, and now I'm just gonna pour out like 30 milliliters of HC110 solution from the bottle. All right, so we have about 30 milliliters of HC110 solution here. It's like a thicker kind of orange syrupy kind of looking chemical. I believe newer HC110 stuff now is no longer this orange color, but so this is some older chemicals. Now we're gonna make sure that we've got the right temperature, and we're gonna mix like 970 milliliters of water. Then I'm just gonna add it to a jug, and then I'm gonna kind of like shake the jug up to kind of mix up the chemicals, and then we will be able to develop. So 1,000 milliliters of chemicals, and I'm gonna add it to this jug and then just kind of shake it and mix it up and get it going. I'm kind of ready to go here. I'm gonna dump out the water mixture of the tank, and then we're just gonna add in the chemicals. And again, I'm gonna develop for 7 minutes, and I'm gonna agitate usually every 30 seconds for about 5 seconds. And once the chemicals are in the tank, you kind of want to slam it down, and then you can do your initial inversion, and I'll do my initial like inversion for about 15 seconds. Actually gonna agitate for 10 seconds every 30 seconds. So inversions, you kind of want to be careful, especially with like 35 millimeter film where there's sprocket holes. If you are inverting and moving things too fast, then you can actually get surge marks on your 35 millimeter film because the chemicals are moving so quickly through the sprocket holes of the film when you're developing and agitating. This developer solution is also a one-shot. And a one-shot just means I can safely use it for this, and then I can dump it down the drain and dispose of it appropriately that way. Other developers you can mix and actually save in a bottle and use them more frequently if you're developing like longer runs of film over time. Black and white developing is also like the easiest stuff to kind of do at home. It allows for more flexibility in terms of like chemical temperatures as opposed to color negative and like things like slide film, where that involves like color chemicals and bleaching chemicals, and those have to be like way more precise in terms of the temperatures that need to be maintained in the tank. So I've got about a minute left, so I'm gonna do like one more agitation cycle of like 10-15 seconds, and then I'm gonna dump out the chemicals into the sink, and then I'm going to rinse it with just some water. You can also use stop bath, but for black and white stuff, it's okay to use just some water and do like a couple of rinses to make sure the chemical is removed from the film. Fill that up and reset my timer in the process, and just kind of do this for like 2 minutes of just water. And I am going to do inversions and agitation at least with this, and I can be like a little rougher just to make sure that like we're making sure to rinse the chemicals off the films. So now we're just gonna dump this out. That's just like a rinse. And again, we're just gonna pour all my fix in. So fix is like the final stage in the developing process. Fix is used in color and black and white developing processes. It kind of removes like all light sensitive properties of the film, and kind of sort of removes any remaining like active silver components of the film as well. So after this inversion, I'm gonna put the fix back into my jug here, and then I'm just gonna do like a final rinse. And so I'm just gonna remove the lid, and I'm gonna just put it under running water for maybe another 10 minutes or so. Fix also contains ammonium, and you can identify Fix really easily because it smells like ammonium. So it does have to like properly rinse and everything, but in the meantime, I can take a little peek at it because the developing process is done and it's no longer light sensitive. So I'm not done yet because it still has to develop, but you can take a look and you can see what I've done wrong. On this side, all 3 sheets are properly loaded and they're not touching at all. But then on this side, this one sheet has actually slipped into the wrong groove and there's only 1 gap as opposed to 2 gaps. And now I did just cheat and kind of like take a little peek, but also readjust the negatives to sit properly during this rinsing process. And in doing so, I did catch a glimpse and it looks like they might be okay. So I've got the film here and I'm just gonna hang it up first and then I'm just gonna show it off. This stuff is a little hard to show, but we do have 6 sheets of film hanging up here. I'm just using like little clips. The exposure looks okay on them overall. It's a little dark, but I could probably in the future meter this stuff at ISO 25 instead of ISO 50, which is what I went with, and just like continue to overexpose. So that is the 4x5 developed, and I mean, it looks okay. Let's see if I can transfer it successfully. Also, it's almost midnight, and I'm pretty wiped because I always underestimate how much effort and how much time this actually takes for me to do. Now I threw my negatives into the sleeving here, which I have, and it just protects the negatives. You can get these for 35mm for slides, for 120 medium format. So if we take a look at them, they're nothing crazy. I mean, like, they're pretty fogged. It's just not in great shape anymore. It's really flat. Like, there's not necessarily like a lot of contrast on here. And you can kind of like take a look at these ones. We're gonna try and throw these on my scanner and something to get like a final version to be able to show you guys. Here I am with my CanoScan 8400F. It's a much older scanner model, but it is a flatbed that can do transparencies, which means that you need to have like this area on the top here, which is also a light. Unfortunately, this one is not like a higher end one that can do sheet film, like 4x5 film, and can only do as big as 120 medium format negatives. I'm gonna scan each one in 2 pieces and then stitch them together in Photoshop. I didn't promise you guys good scans. Now I'm also really lucky because I've always had my film scanned at a lab, and I was really spoiled, and previously worked at a lab and we used Noritsu scanners that were whole roll scanners for 35mm and 120, and you could adjust really quickly and really easily, so I was really spoiled. So I don't really like flatbed scanners. They're a lot of work, it can be a slow process, and it can be hard to get good color a lot of the time. I already have some view scan settings set up here, but I'm just gonna quickly run through them, and this is how I'm just gonna scan the film so that I can have a raw negative file as opposed to it trying to invert my image. 8400F is my scanner. It's gonna scan to file. I'm on professional options here so I can have all my options. It's on transparency mode, which means that I'm scanning a transparent image, like a film negative. It is an image as opposed to a negative or slide film, so it would just scan the image for me. It is going to scan at 1600. This can go up to 3200 technically, but again, it's a much older scanner, so it doesn't necessarily do 3200 super well. We're gonna autosave to scan, so once it scans the image, that will automatically save the file, and it's just gonna save it into my pictures folder on my MacBook. For crop, it's just gonna be a manual crop, so I will be able to kind of like drag and select it. Filter, infrared clean you can't do on black and white film. You can only do it on color film to be able to scan it using infrared and remove any sort of hair kind of that way. So that's off. Grain reduction is off. Color we will adjust a little bit once it scans. Output is going to my pictures. We're just gonna scan 8x10, and we're gonna have auto file name off, but we're gonna have raw file checked. We're gonna have 48-bit RGB, and we're going to do raw DNG format. So this will just give me a raw image in a DNG format, which I can open in like Photoshop, and it would just be the negative. It won't be an inverted image. Instead of just laying it flat on the scanner, it does need to be raised up a little bit. This isn't gonna be great, but I'm just gonna lay this medium format film holder here and then just kind of place the 4x5s on top of it. So I have a glove here to kind of like safely handle a negative. I'm not gonna do all of them right now and like show off every single one, but I'm just gonna go through like the process of doing one negative here. This one, which is a street corner, so I'm gonna pull that out, and we wanna scan it with the emulsion side facing up. I also have an orange like microfiber cloth, which is good for just kind of like wiping off dust. There is gonna be a ton of dust, and that's hard to manage with scanning 4x5 film, even normally on a flatbed scanner. We're just gonna scan it. In the future, I might just take them into a lab when that's a possibility again, and get them scanned like properly. So now we're just gonna hit preview. That magical noise of a flatbed scanner means that it is scanning my image, and we can see the preview coming through here. Here we go. This is my crop outline, and it's just kind of like drag and reposition it. So it's giving me something, and it's not like too bad looking for what I want. None is actually just like really flat, because the negative isn't super great. If we throw it on auto levels though, that gives us a better looking negative file, so I might just be lazy and for now just leave things on auto. So I'm just gonna scan away. So flatbed scanners, you have to use holders, and you have to be willing to cut up your film, put them in the holder, and kind of scan one at a time. There's also like whole roll scanners, like higher end ones like Fuji Frontiers and Naritsu machines, which will just take the film all in one roll and just do it at once. Now this is ready, so I'm just gonna call this -1, and then I'm just gonna save it. And now I'm gonna adjust this a little bit. I'm just gonna push this over. I'm gonna hit preview again. Here comes my like second portion of the image. Again, it's the same thing. You just preview it. It's just gonna show it for me here. Crop it out here. And then we're just gonna scan it up. And it's already opened up Photoshop for me, so I'm gonna close that. I'm gonna go over to here and hit convert to grayscale, and it should open up my next one as well. So this one as well, I'm just gonna convert to grayscale. I just want to kind of combine them and do like a quick little stitch between the two. So I'm gonna add a little more room to this, just as much as I want. There's gonna be like a little bit of a seam at least. Again, for this exercise, I'm gonna call all of this acceptable. Okay, so it's still, we're just gonna throw that on. So just auto contrasting for an example here, and then inverting, which is just like, and there we go. So this is just kind of like a rough scan, but this gives you an idea of the image that I took. So you can see here like specs in terms of like just aging of the film. Really, in like a brief nutshell, this is like flatbed scanning. Like not a great example, of course, because it's not meant for 4x5s, but 4x5 film is what I have, and is what I shot, and what I decided to do. So I'm gonna scan the other ones, and then I'm just gonna kind of wrap up and show off like some rough scans of this stuff and talk about it. So the scans are just kind of, you know, what I can accomplish with the scanner that I have on hand. I really did have to like punch up the contrast of the scans, and because it's black and white, you can really just easily invert the film. When you're inverting color negative film and you just have like normal scans of like an orange based color negative film stock, it is a little trickier to like invert it properly. Now for this film specifically, you can really see like the age of it, like the fog of it, and also just like the weird like little artifacts and like spots on the negatives themselves, which are just kind of like weak or like dead spots of like film emulsion where it's just like not like sensitive anymore, and these areas just show up as like black splotches on the negative. It's really kind of like what I've come to expect from shooting this stuff. It does benefit from having better scans, and you can kind of get like a smoother kind of like stranger kind of look to it, but definitely like I enjoy these overall, just, you know, because like I did it kind of all myself. It is pretty wild stuff though, and I wouldn't say every shot is one that I like. Now, I'm probably pretty biased here, but I do think that the shot of Renee is probably one of the better ones of the 6 in terms of just exposure, and it, you know, looks pretty good here. And there's also this kind of blurry one of me that we took, but unfortunately I moved too quickly before we took the picture, so you know, a bit of a mistake here. I also noticed after kind of taking a look at things that there are light leaks along the edges of the frames of these. And I'm not sure exactly the source of this. It could be the film in the box wasn't stored properly, or there could be an issue with my Graphmatic holder, or it could be an issue in loading. So I might just have to do some more tests to see kind of what's up. But other than that, not too disappointed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope that, you know, you just had fun, and it was something interesting to watch and check out. So there's also links in the description to the Analog Resurgence Patreon, and there's been some recent, like, great amount of support over there, which means a lot to me, and that stuff is just building up the ability for me to, you know, invest in more home developing and home scanning stuff so that, you know, that side of stuff that you guys want to see is more possible. Also, the Analog Resurgence P.O. Box address is in the description, so any sorts of like expired film or like weird analog stuff that you want to send along to the channel that I can try and put to good use is more than welcome. But of course, put all of that stuff on hold over your own safety and health in terms of like going out to the post office or just like unnecessary trips. And speaking of the P.O. Box though, I would like to highlight and give a shout out to something that I recently received in the P.O. Box, which means that I get to kind of talk about an upcoming topic as well. So I very recently put up a video kind of criticizing Polaroid, which I feel good and bad about, because I would like to reiterate that I love shooting Polaroids and I love that Polaroid film exists. I also was able to give a shout out to Ben, who just started a new channel called In an Instant. His videos look great, are really fun, and he clearly has like a passion for like Polaroid and instant film, and they're just like a lot of fun to watch. And so again, go check that out, link in the description. And he was also super kind enough to send me 2 unexposed cartridges of Polavision film. So that means Polavision is coming, and Polavision is a project that I'm going to do that hopefully I can put to good use and make something interesting for you guys sometime soon, hopefully. But Ben was kind enough to send me some actual film. Whether it's any good anymore, I guess we'll have to kind of stick around to find out. And Polavision is coming. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Ben. In an instant, check out his channel. And I will see you guys soon.